You know what's worse than being lied to, feeling it, but pretending you don't. We've all been there, that gut instinct that something isn't right, the way they avoid eye contact, the sudden change in their energy, the excuses that just don't add up, and yet we silence ourselves. We tell ourselves, maybe I'm overreacting, but let me tell you something, your intuition is your greatest protection. I spent years studying human behavior from micro-expressions to the psychology of deception, and one thing I've learned is this. People always tell you who they are, not with their words, but with their patterns, with their silence, with their inconsistencies. The problem is, we often choose not to see it because the truth hurts more than the lie. So in this talk, we're not here to guess, assume, or accuse. We're here to observe, understand, and empower. I'm going to show you the 5 clear behavioral signs that can reveal when your partner's loyalty is shifting, and how to reclaim your clarity, your confidence, and your peace of mind. Because when you know what to look for, you stop being played and start standing in your power. When someone starts to betray your trust, their behavior always shifts before their story ever does. It's one of the most consistent patterns in human deception. People can control their words, but they struggle to control their actions. Behavior leaks truth because it's driven by the subconscious, not the script they've rehearsed in their mind. You might notice they suddenly become less attentive, distracted, or even unusually helpful, as if overcompensating for something. These small adjustments are the first cracks in their facade. They're not random. They're signals that something beneath the surface has changed. The moment loyalty begins to waver, routine behaviors start to fracture. You'll see inconsistencies. They might stop sharing details of their day, or they may start adding unnecessary details to make a story sound convincing. People who have nothing to hide tend to be simple in their explanations. People who are hiding something, however, use words like camouflage. They tell you too much or too little, hoping you won't notice the imbalance. This is where observation becomes your most powerful tool. Instead of reacting emotionally, you pay attention to the data tone, timing, patterns. You'll start to notice that they behave differently around their phone. They might keep it face down, turn off notifications, or carry it with them everywhere, even to the bathroom. The phone becomes a secret extension of their private life. That's not paranoia talking, that's pattern recognition. If someone who used to be relaxed about their devices suddenly guards them like classified information, it's because there's something on it they don't want discovered. Behavior is data, and every small shift is a clue. Then there's their presence, or rather, their absence. They're there physically, but emotionally, they feel detached. They may zone out during conversations, offer half-hearted answers, or seem lost in thought when you're together. When people start engaging elsewhere emotionally or romantically, their energy pulls away from you without them realizing it. Their body is in the room, but their focus isn't. You can sense it because humans are deeply intuitive. The emotional disconnection is palpable, even if they try to act normal. It's important not to jump to conclusions at the first sign of a behavioral change. Instead, gather evidence over time. Consistency is key. One off day doesn't mean betrayal, but repeated behavioral patterns that contradict their usual self are worth noting. You might find that their schedule changes unexpectedly, or they start offering vague explanations that don't line up. Sometimes it's as simple as noticing how they talk. People who are hiding something may use fewer personal pronouns like I or we, because they're subconsciously distancing themselves from the relationship. Human behavior doesn't lie. Even expert liars can't keep every micro-expression, body gesture, and tone shift under control. That's why behavioral analysis is so powerful. It reveals what words try to conceal. You might notice delayed responses when you ask simple questions, or a momentary hesitation before they answer. You might catch a subtle change in their facial expression, a slight tightening of the jaw, or eyes darting away when discussing certain topics. These micro-behaviors are the body's way of protecting itself from the discomfort of deception. In relationships, the hardest part isn't spotting the signs, it's accepting what those signs mean. Because when your heart is invested, your mind wants to rationalize. You tell yourself they're just stressed, busy, or tired. But the truth is, your intuition often picks up the shift long before your logic admits it. That uneasy feeling you can't quite explain is your subconscious noticing behavioral changes. Trust it, because before the excuses, before the lies, before the stories change, the behavior always does. When someone becomes defensive the moment you ask a simple, reasonable question, that reaction speaks volumes. Defensiveness is often a shield people use when they feel exposed or guilty. It's a psychological reflex, the mind's way of deflecting attention from a truth they don't want uncovered. Instead of answering calmly or with openness, they respond with irritation, accusation, or sarcasm. You might hear phrases like, "Why don't you trust me?" or "You're always trying to start something." These aren't real answers. They're diversion tactics meant to turn the spotlight away from them and back onto you. It's emotional misdirection, and it's one of the clearest signs that something isn't right. In healthy relationships, curiosity doesn't threaten. When two people have mutual trust, questions are just that, questions. They're opportunities to communicate, not competitions to win. But when someone has something to hide, even the simplest inquiry feels dangerous. They'll overreact, shift blame, or twist the narrative so that you end up defending yourself for even asking. That's the subtle art of manipulation at play. It's not just about avoiding the truth. It's about making you doubt your right to seek it. Defensiveness can take many forms. Some people explode in anger, while others retreat into silence. Some use humor to deflect, pretending it's no big deal, while others gaslight you into thinking you're paranoid. The reaction might look different, but the motive is always the same: to protect a secret or avoid accountability. If you notice that conversations that used to feel easy now suddenly become tense, you're not imagining it. Something has shifted in the emotional dynamic. Behaviorally, defensiveness is rooted in fear. When someone feels cornered, their body and mind go into survival mode. Their tone sharpens, their posture tightens, their eyes may avert or harden. These micro-expressions are the physical embodiment of discomfort. They're not just reacting to your question, they're reacting to the possibility of exposure. What's critical here is to recognize the pattern. One defensive response doesn't mean deceit, but when defensiveness becomes a consistent reaction to honesty, it's a red flag waving loud and clear. You'll also notice that defensive partners tend to project. Instead of addressing your concern, they'll accuse you of doing exactly what they're doing. It's called mirroring, and it's one of the oldest psychological defense mechanisms. If they're being secretive, they'll say you're the one acting distant. If they're lying, they'll question your loyalty. This projection shifts your focus and keeps you tangled in confusion. Over time, it erodes your confidence, making you second guess your instinct. That's how manipulation gains power, not through lies alone, but through repeated self-doubt. Another thing to pay attention to is emotional inconsistency. When someone's story aligns with truth, their emotions follow naturally. But when they're hiding something, their emotional responses don't match their words. They may get angry too quickly or act indifferent when they should be concerned. Their reactions feel performative, not authentic. That dissonance between emotion and expression is often the giveaway. Even if their words sound convincing, their energy tells another story. The key is not to confront defensiveness with aggression, but with calm observation. When you stay composed, you remove the emotional fuel they need to keep deflecting. Watch how they respond when you hold your ground without matching their intensity. People who are truthful tend to relax once they realize you're not attacking. People who are hiding something only grow more reactive because calmness makes their tactics ineffective. It exposes the instability in their story. At the heart of it, defensiveness isn't just a behavioral response, it's a psychological tell. It reveals an inner battle between truth and control. The more they resist your questions, the more their discomfort betrays them. So when you feel that sudden wall go up, don't dismiss it as sensitivity or moodiness. Listen to it, because defensiveness, especially when unprovoked, isn't about you being too curious. It's about them protecting what they don't want you to find. When communication patterns change, it's rarely by accident. Every relationship builds its own rhythm: the frequency of texts, the tone of conversations, the way you check in with each other. When that rhythm suddenly shifts without a clear reason, it's often the first quiet sign that something deeper is happening. You start to feel the difference before you can even explain it. Messages that once came quickly now take hours. Calls that used to be long and warm become short and mechanical. It's not just about fewer words, it's about the absence of genuine connection behind those words. When someone's attention begins to drift elsewhere, communication is usually the first place it shows. People in loyal relationships communicate from presence, not obligation. They share naturally because they want to, not because they feel they have to. But when someone's emotional energy starts to divide, communication becomes strategic. They'll text you just enough to maintain the appearance of normalcy, but without the emotional engagement that once existed. You'll notice the enthusiasm is gone, the questions about your day disappear, and conversations that used to feel effortless now feel transactional. It's subtle, but over time it becomes impossible to ignore. Even silence begins to sound different. When someone is loyal, silence between you feels comfortable, peaceful. When they're hiding something, that silence feels heavy, tense, filled with unspoken words. The pauses in conversation stretch longer, their responses become delayed, and their tone shifts in small but noticeable ways. They might stop using affectionate language, or their humor feels forced. These changes don't happen all at once. They creep in gradually, blending into the background until one day you realize you've stopped talking like you used to. The hardest part about detecting communication shifts is that the changes are often rationalized. You tell yourself they're busy, tired, or stressed, and maybe they are, but when that busy energy becomes constant and you feel a growing gap between your connection and their excuses, that's when you have to pay attention. Human communication is a mirror of emotional investment. When that investment starts to fade, the dialogue follows. There's also a pattern in the way people manage information when they are being disloyal. They start to withhold small details that once came naturally. They tell stories that feel edited, vague, or oddly structured. Sometimes they over-explain, adding unnecessary detail to sound believable. Other times they under-explain, offering as little as possible to avoid slipping up. Both extremes are indicators of emotional withdrawal or deception. When communication is honest, it's consistent. When it's not, it's either overly cautious or overly rehearsed. Digital behavior is another powerful indicator. Maybe they start responding only during specific hours, or their online activity doesn't align with what they've told you. You might see them active on social media but ignoring your messages. These are small behavioral inconsistencies that reveal where their attention truly is. You don't need to monitor or control, you just need to observe. Patterns speak louder than promises. Another sign is emotional unavailability during conversations that matter. When you try to address something important, they brush it off, change the subject, or make you feel guilty for bringing it up. That avoidance isn't random, it's intentional. People who are fully present in a relationship engage even when the conversation is uncomfortable. People who aren't will dodge it to protect their secret life from colliding with their current one. Over time, that avoidance creates emotional erosion. You begin to feel unseen, unheard, and disconnected. When communication shifts, what's really changing isn't just words, it's access. The person who used to confide in you, who once let you into their inner world, now keeps you at arm's length. That distance may not be spoken, but it's felt deeply. You can sense when conversations stop being a bridge and start becoming a barrier. And that's the real message, not the one they send, but the one they stop sending. Emotional distance is one of the clearest signs that something in a relationship has shifted. It's not always loud or obvious. Sometimes it's the quietest, most gradual change that carries the heaviest weight. You feel it in the way they no longer look at you the same, in the absence of small gestures that once felt natural, in the subtle indifference that replaces warmth. Physical closeness can still exist, the hugs, the dinners, the routines, but the emotional connection behind those actions begins to fade. It's as if they're there, but not truly present, and you start to sense that invisible wall between you. When someone becomes emotionally distant, it's rarely about being too busy or distracted. It's about where their emotional energy is being redirected. Human beings have limited emotional capacity. When someone begins investing that energy elsewhere, whether it's another person or a fantasy of a different life, there's less left for you. They may not even realize they're doing it, but you'll feel it immediately. Conversations that used to go deep now stay on the surface. They avoid vulnerability, avoid eye contact, and avoid moments of intimacy that once came naturally. It's not about what they're saying, it's about what they're no longer sharing. The emotional distance often shows up in small, repetitive ways. They stop noticing things about you, your mood, your tone, your little changes. They used to pick up on your feelings before you spoke, but now, even when you express them, they seem disengaged. Their empathy fades. They might still perform the motions of care, ask if you're okay, say they love you, but the words sound hollow, stripped of the genuine emotion that once filled them. You start to feel like you're in a relationship with a version of them that's emotionally checked out. One of the hardest things about emotional distance is that it's easy to doubt yourself first. You might think you're being too sensitive, or that your expectations are too high. But emotional connection is something we feel in our nervous system. It's not imagined. When someone who once made you feel safe and connected suddenly feels cold or detached, that shift is real. It's your intuition picking up on the absence of emotional reciprocity. That emptiness you feel isn't a coincidence, it's data. It's the body's way of saying something isn't aligned. The more emotional distance grows, the harder it becomes to communicate effectively. They'll start to withdraw during meaningful conversations, offering short answers or avoiding engagement altogether. Their patience decreases, and they may even act irritated when you express your feelings. That irritation isn't about you being difficult, it's about them being uncomfortable with accountability. When people are emotionally invested, they lean in. When they are not, they look for ways to exit. Sometimes they'll use distraction as an escape, diving into work, scrolling on their phone, or spending more time out of the house. These behaviors are subtle forms of emotional evasion. Another layer of emotional distance is the loss of intimacy, not just physical, but psychological. They stop sharing their fears, their thoughts, their dreams. You stop being their confidant and start feeling like a roommate. When emotional intimacy fades, trust erodes with it. Because trust isn't built through grand gestures, it's built through consistent emotional engagement. And when that engagement fades, you're left trying to connect with someone who's already somewhere else emotionally. It's painful to admit, but emotional distance is often the precursor to disloyalty. Before someone crosses a boundary, they emotionally detach to justify their actions. It's a subconscious way of creating emotional permission for what comes next. That's why catching it early matters. You can't force closeness, but you can recognize disconnection for what it is, a warning sign that someone's heart is drifting. Emotional distance doesn't always scream betrayal, but it always whispers truth. When you feel the connection slipping, it's not about needing more attention. It's about noticing that the bond you once shared has started to disappear and deciding whether to chase it or face it. Your intuition notices what your heart tries to deny. It's that quiet, uneasy feeling deep in your gut that tells you something is off, even when everything looks normal on the surface. You can't explain it logically, but it lingers, a subtle tension that won't go away. Intuition is your internal security system built from every experience, observation, and emotional cue you've ever picked up. It's not paranoia and it's not insecurity, it's awareness. When loyalty begins to fade, your intuition senses the shift before your mind catches up. The energy between you changes and your subconscious starts connecting dots you don't even realize you're seeing. The challenge is that most people learn to silence that voice. You care about someone, you love them, and you don't want to believe they could betray you. So you rationalize the red flags, you explain away the inconsistencies, convincing yourself there's another reason for their distance, their defensiveness, or their disinterest. That's the heart trying to protect itself because accepting the truth means accepting loss. But ignoring your intuition doesn't make the truth go away. It only delays the moment you face it, and by then the damage runs deeper. Your intuition isn't built on guesswork. It's informed by the subtle shifts in tone, body language, and energy that your conscious mind often overlooks. Maybe their smile doesn't reach their eyes anymore. Maybe their tone has lost warmth, or their affection feels rehearsed. Maybe they used to hold you close without hesitation, but now their touch feels distant, obligatory. These are small details, but your body registers them all. It knows when connection is genuine and when it's forced. That's why you can feel a lie even when you can't prove it. Your intuition detects the emotional dissonance between truth and deception. Many people mistake intuition for fear, but they're not the same. Fear is loud, chaotic, and fueled by anxiety. Intuition is calm but persistent. It doesn't panic, it whispers. It doesn't demand, it nudges. You can feel it in moments of stillness when your mind quiets, and something deep inside tells you that what you're seeing doesn't match what you're being told. It's not about suspicion, it's about recognition. You're recognizing patterns of behavior that no longer align with love or loyalty. The most powerful thing you can do is learn to trust that instinct. Not every doubt means deception, but consistent unease always deserves attention. Your intuition is your body's way of protecting your emotional safety, alerting you before your rational mind can piece the evidence together. People who ignore that inner voice often look back later and say, "I knew it." That phrase isn't regret, it's realization. They knew, but they didn't listen. Tuning into intuition requires honesty with yourself. It means facing uncomfortable truths even when you'd rather stay in denial. It means asking yourself hard questions. Am I making excuses for behavior that hurts me? Am I confusing comfort with connection? Am I trusting words over consistency? When you stop dismissing your own inner cues, clarity begins to return. You start to see things as they are, not as you wish they were. Intuition doesn't accuse, it observes. It tells you to look closer, to pay attention, to protect your peace. It's your most authentic guide in relationships because it's unfiltered by emotion or manipulation. When something feels wrong, it's not your job to prove it immediately, it's your job to acknowledge it. The truth will always reveal itself, but your intuition often feels it first. When you honor that instinct, you reclaim your power. You stop waiting for permission to see what's real. Because the moment you choose to trust your intuition over your denial, you stop being fooled not by others, but by your own hope.